One of the most crucial pillars to planning and executing an adventure is your snacks. Anyone that's done an adventure knows that you are ravishing food, and it's important that you're filling your body with quality snacks and not just junk food. And I've made that mistake way too many times. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about our newest sponsor, Wonderful Pistachios. Pistachios are a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids and one of the highest protein snack nuts. And also, unlike meat, protein-powered pistachios are naturally cholesterol-free and add fiber to your day. And not only that, they're really filling, so it's none of those empty calories that you get with a lot of other snack food. And it's super versatile as well. I just had some on a salad literally 10 minutes ago, and I had some as a snack this afternoon. And you can get them different ways. You can get them lightly salted, roasted, sweet chili, salt and pepper, and you can get them traditionally in shell or no shell. So if you're interested, visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. When it comes to watching the big game, every second counts, especially if you are missing even a moment of the action to go for a drink run. Luckily, there's Drizzly. It's the #1 app for alcohol delivery. Y'all know I work for a brewery. It's non-alcoholic beer, so we can ship it right to your house. But you can't do that with other brands. But now you can with Drizzly. You can shop local stores, compare the prices over a huge selection of beer, wine, spirits, and get it all delivered to your house in under 60 minutes. Or you can schedule it up to 2 weeks in advance. So if you're throwing a big party, have it all ready to go. Talk about a slam dunk. They also make it very easy to send those as a gift. You can literally gift people that alcohol right to your friends, family, for whatever occasion, even if that occasion is rubbing in their face that their team lost. In your face, other team. So if you're looking to spend more time watching the game, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. I am always thinking about the balance of relatability and inspiration on our show. You know, we want guests that inspire you with things that no one has ever done or no one could ever do again. Things like free soloing El Capitan. But I also want to balance it with relatability, like people who do things on the weekends and have normal lives and make adventure accessible and feel like something you can achieve. Our guest today, Jennifer Strong McConachie, is honestly a balance between both. And the main thing I picked up from her story and listening to her is just an amazing balance between professional life, being a mom, being a spouse, and being a really incredible adventurer. It's the kind of lifestyle that I strive for, where you have all these things in place and this joy that comes out of a quote-unquote normal life, but also amazing adventures mixed in there as well. And what you're going to see is that it doesn't just come naturally. You have to work at it. You have to plug it in. It's like, oh, I have a business trip coming up. Can I literally paddle there or walk there or get there and do some adventure while I'm there? Fitting adventure into life is totally doable. And Jennifer makes it sound so effortless in a ways, other than doing the actual adventure. It's a lot of effort. And she also does a ton of different interesting, wild combinations of sports like swim running and almost swim touring. And she's put all these experiences that she's done all around the world over years and years into a book recently called Go Far, How Endurance Sports Helps You Win at Life. That just sounds like it's chock full of gold nuggets of wisdom, experience, and inspiration. So I was really inspired by this conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. So feel free to pick up her book. It's linked in the show notes, and let's go ahead and jump in. Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. You heard a little bit about Jennifer's story at the beginning of the episode. You just where to find her book and whatnot, but we're going to have a chat with Jennifer now. But Jennifer McConachie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mason. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So I always ask this first, and I think I might know, but where's home for you and where are you right now?
I am in the Midwest. I live in Wichita, Kansas.
All right. And is that where you grew up?
Yes, I grew up here. And it's maybe not the first place you would think of to be an adventure athlete, but that's part of my story is really going out and finding that no matter where you live.
Oh man, so I'm actually really excited to talk because it's always a treat talking to people who have really careers or prominent side gigs. I know you do another job for a living, but I love talking to folks where it's not an adventure hub because I want to hear that perspective and how you make it work. But quick side note, have you ever heard of the name Rolf Potts?
Yes, I
Okay.
have.
Yeah, he's a very well-known explorer and writer and adventurer who is based not out of Wichita, but a really small town, I think about an hour or so from Wichita. And he was honestly probably my biggest inspiration in college for getting out there and doing adventures. And come to find out, he lives on some land out there somewhere and he loves it. So, talks about it a lot, how that has opened the world to him, living in a place that isn't so heavily focused on adventure.
That is so cool. And I think we went to the same high school, not at the same time. And I've heard his name. We haven't met, but that's fun that you bring that up. So I will need to connect with him at some point more because I've definitely heard his name. And we share a common high school
That's
right in the
too
middle of our
cool.
city. So
Well, tell us about that. What adventure? Adventure. People think of Colorado. People think of other places than Kansas with adventure. But you tell me, what were you doing growing up in the adventure world? I don't believe you were doing adventures. You were more focused on traditional sports, or not traditional, honestly, like triathlons and stuff. Tell us about the ways you were staying active growing up.
Sure, absolutely. Like, luckily, my dad was always a big influence. And so I grew up as a childhood triathlete, but I also did a lot of road races and running and competitive swimming. So I've been an athlete since I was 7, in really a variety of sports. And I've liked to kind of have taken that journey, and I still run. I still swim. I still do sport combinations. So it's been really fun to have that early beginning and then progress as an athlete through the years and just integrate different modes. And so you're not always running track or cross country or road races. Through the years, I was able to become an ultra runner and even get into stage racing where I would run multiple days in a row, traveling the world doing that. So it's really kind of fun to look back and look at that progression as an athlete. Same way with swimming. Started out as an age grouper swimming in my neighborhood pool, and went on to become an open water distance swimmer, swimming across from Europe to Asia across one of the iconic spots in the world. So all of that from the Midwest, and I just get such a kick out of. I don't live by an ocean. I have some lakes, I have some rivers, but one of my favorite things to do is seek out and find the water. As a swimmer with that swimming background, I'm always looking for ways to swim across or paddle down or surf a river, any way that I can find that water and then sort of connect it through other sports, other iterations, other modes. That's probably my secret for finding adventure in Kansas is build it around the water. Even if it's hard to get to or hard to find, it's not built in. It's not just like, oh, obviously there's the ocean. You have to kind of be a little more creative, but that's the fun is being more creative to find something that's not just naturally given.
Mm. I was going to save this for later in the episode, but now that we're talking about it, let's just dive in because there's
Okay.
so many people that listen to this show that we hear from all the time. And they're like, I don't live in the most adventurous place, or I do and I don't take advantage of it enough. I live in Florida. People are probably tired of hearing this. Started this show in Colorado, moved to Florida, and I'll be honest, I don't feel like there's a drop off of the amount of adventures and the quality of adventures you can have. It really is just looking at it through a new lens. And I tell people, like, you think I'm lying, but these are just as impactful and as exciting and as beautiful as adventures I've done anywhere in the world. What do you think some of the keys are to finding adventure where you are? And have you also found what I'm talking about with Kansas? Like, it's almost more rewarding to find it there because you have to search a little harder.
You really do. You have to create your own. I love what you've been doing in Florida, and there's some really cool things that I've learned through my book writing process and becoming more involved in the endurance community. The Florida Trail, I'd never heard of that before, and I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool. And just so many, again, water sport opportunities, the stand-up paddle boarding, the kayaking, canoeing, water sports, and that kind of thing. So it's fun really wherever you are, and it's a great way to infuse your travels as well. So I went to Hawaii a few months ago for a speaking opportunity, and I tried outrigger paddling. And that is the state sport of Hawaii. It's a really big part of the culture, and they have different teams. And when I was adventure racing, I would hear about doing outrigger canoeing and see it on some of the televised adventure races. And I was like, man, I've never done that kind of paddling. If I'm going to go to Hawaii, I have got to try that. And so I had an opportunity to sign up and join a team and join a crew. And it was such an awesome experience. Like I didn't have a lot of paddling background, but not a specific outrigger background. And I just jumped on, and it was kind of like no questions asked. I was just accepted and automatically part of the team. And we did some training rides and, rode the waves in. And so it was like super cool. And I had that in the back of my mind of like, I need to do this so that I have that as an adventure racing skill. If I ever do an adventure race where I need to, be able to race, and have that knowledge. And so I was, business trip to Hawaii, and I got to go try this new water sport. And so that was an opportunity and an example of like, try something special with like where you are, where it's unique to where you're going. And it's a great way to try new sports, which is kind of one of my favorite things to do. Kind of talking about that sports progression. Like, you don't always have to be a paddler in the same way. You can try rowing, you can try rafting, you can try supboarding, you can try canoeing or kayaking or different types of kayaking. I do flat water here in Kansas, but I went to some whitewater training school in North Carolina, and it was such a huge difference. Different boats, different way of using your body. And I love to talk about, it's like road running and trail running, or mountain biking and road biking, or I say pool swimming and open water swimming, flat water kayaking and whitewater, and then you can throw ocean in too. So just thinking along those lines of like maybe you've tried one area, but going and trying the different iteration.
I love that. It's endless what you can do when you start to just view it that way. How frequent or how often do you try to do adventures, like major adventures where you travel? I know during COVID that was tough, but where you do things in other places that fall under the normal, regular category of adventure of being exotic and adventurous and it like a big challenge. Do you have a cadence you try to hit, or is it just as the opportunity comes?
It's kind of as the opportunity comes, and it's kind of a journey, because I had 10 solid years in my late 20s, early 30s where I was really in it. I was doing 3, 4, maybe even 5 really big international events a year. And I would switch it up too. Like, I would be ultra run training, but then I would go and climb Mount Rainier, or I would be in marathon swimming. I did a race in Namibia running through the desert. And then after that, as kind of a contrast, I had my hot desert run. Then I went and swam across the Hellespont. And so I had a lot of that intensity. And then, of course, everyone's world changed with the pandemic, and we didn't have opportunities to go as many places. But I was also in the middle of having 2 children fairly close together. And so I did kind of have to really start doing more things that were easier to access close to home. And, that was great. I loved that because when I was always focused on traveling internationally or across the country, I wasn't having a chance to explore my local state parks as much. And so, or just trails around my house, or like I love finding a new route to somewhere. Like, this is kind of a silly example, but we have a new coffee shop that's opening. And I'm like, I'm going to run there. I haven't ran that way in a while. And like, I think that's going to be the best way to get to go try it, is if I do a new route and I run there. Um, so I try to have some kind of fun weekly adventure that like infuses my life and gives me, like this week I'm gonna, run through the sculpture garden on my run, and maybe I'm gonna, run across my river too because it's summer and it's hot. And so on a weekly basis, I try to just have something that's fun and outdoors as part of my training. And then I have probably a couple a year right now. Last year my son was not yet one, and so I did a really cool 8 sports in 8 days. So I did 8 different sports each day to celebrate my 38th birthday. And then this year, for my birthday event, I paddled 100 miles continuously in my kayak on the Missouri River, which I'm in Kansas. Missouri is the next state over. Then I have a kind of a pack rafting, swim, cross country swimming, bike packing trip that I'm planning on in the fall. So it really just depends on family life commitments, and we can delve into some of those more. I know I just kind of breezed past some of those big adventures, but the 100-mile ultra paddle was a huge event. I've spent years planning it, but with kids and the pandemic, I kind of got put on hold. And so that was like a very intense, focused period. And I'm hoping this fall packing combination is, more low key, more fun, more just kind of going out on the weekend and doing a lot of local exploring. So yeah, at least a couple a year, and then that weekly out and about, find the fun around you kind of training.
Tell us more about that 100-mile paddle. How long did that take?
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible.
As you gear up for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders, especially around the holidays. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the right people you want to talk to faster and for free, which is my favorite part. I've used LinkedIn to look for jobs and for hiring. We've posted lots of job postings on there with my day job, and that's how probably we get the most candidates. You get to create a free listing in just a couple minutes, and then you can post it to your network and to the greater network of LinkedIn professionals at over 810 million people. It's simple tools. You can ask screening questions to see who's going to be a good fit or not right out of the gate, and you can target just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize what you're looking for and what you're not. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And with over 40 million job seekers visiting LinkedIn every single week, you're bound to get some amazing candidates. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/ASP. That's linkedin.com/ASP. And find that link in the show notes. Terms and conditions apply. I know a lot of the people listening to this show are doing their part to help fight climate change and not leave such a big carbon footprint on the earth. Well, I'm going to give you a new tool to add to your arsenal, and that is the Aspiration Zero credit card. How it works is every time you use it, they plant 2 trees. So literally every time you swipe your card, they plant 2 trees, which is about how much carbon dioxide is used every day or produced every day by the average American, is about how much 2 trees can absorb. So what's really cool is you can rest assured every time you use it, they're planting 2 trees. And to date, they've already planted 75 million trees. So if you want to make your dollars make a difference, apply for the Aspiration Zero credit card today and earn a $300 bonus after spending $3,000 in the first 90 days. Apply now at aspiration.com/ASP to go carbon neutral effortlessly and earn a $300 bonus. Go to aspiration.com/ASP. The Aspiration Zero MasterCard is issued by Beneficial State Bank pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Good credit required. Terms and conditions apply.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
Well, Mason, what I wanted to do with this is I actually created my own event because I had researched races around the country, even throughout the world. As an ultra runner and as a triathlete, I had ridden my bike 100 miles and I had run 100 miles in ultra runs and races. And I really wanted to have a third sport to sort of mirror that three sports of my early triathlon days. So I was like, well, I think I could paddle 100 miles. I had done um, I did the 34 mile for one of my birthdays and was like, I really think that I could do this. And so I tried to find an event to go do, but they were too far or in weather. It just didn't appeal to me. And so I wanted to create something locally that I could do on sort of my home rivers as a way to explore those watersheds and sort of connect to the history of my local area and my local environment. And so I designed this 100-mile paddle nonstop, like you would do an ultra run or a 100-mile century bike. Now, I did stop and get out of the boat at checkpoints, kind of boat ramp access points along the way, just, to move. But I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't getting, food or camping or anything. I just kind of had, snacks and water that we had. So it was super fun to create this. And I've been calling it the ultra trifecta. Because being an ultra endurance athlete in running, biking, and then having that third sport of the 100-mile ultra paddle, that's kind of why I wanted to do it. And it was really fun to create my own. Like I couldn't find something to go compete in. And so I just created my own. And my dad and my husband alternated like driving the Jeep and paddling with me. But it was just us three. The Missouri River is a commercial river and they do have some events on it, but the Coast Guard's involved and they alert the boats that are on there. We were paddling at night. It took me about 18 hours. And a lot of that had to be at nighttime. We had to navigate fog, and they have barges on the river that come through, and they also have sand dredges and a lot of navigational aspects that I hadn't ever encountered on a prairie river or even a whitewater river was different than, a commercial river that has cargo traffic. So we had to get boat lights and follow Coast Guard rules and lots of logistics to go out and do on your own rather than part of an organized event. And that's kind of what I love about a lot of your guests. They're doing things that are outside of the mainstream. They're creating their own, and it wasn't quite self-supported, but it was. It was just us. It wasn't an event, and so that's something that is super fun for me, and super adventurous. Is just kind of starting to create your own when you can't find something or it doesn't work with your schedule.
I love it. And what's so cool about that adventure is you're the only one doing it.
Yeah.
It's not a through hike of a popular trail or even a bike packing route. Definitely not an organized event.
No.
you were pretty organized, but no one else was doing anything.
Right.
But you are the only one out there making that happen. And for me, I don't know about you, but that sense of adventure comes from that. More than I realized before. As I get older, it's from doing things that are just you created this plan. And what's cool about that is it can be in the middle of a city. It can be anywhere in the world. It can be big or as small or as backwoods or as urban as can be. If you are a one of one, it feels like an adventure because it is. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it really was. Thank you. And we were like, oh, we'll see other kayakers, we'll see other paddlers. We all we saw were the barges and the sand dredges. So that really, you really did feel like you were just kind of out there doing something, really out of the normal zone. And what was cool about that is that I do have young children. And so I didn't want to be gone. This was kind of a weekend adventure for me, 18 hours doable in one day. Now I was gone a little bit longer due to driving, but we did an alpine start. We borrowed that term from mountaineering, some of my mountaineering experiences. And so we went to bed at like 6 o'clock at night after dropping the kids off, woke back up at 11, loaded the boats, took off, drove through the night, started as early as possible on the river, paddled nonstop. And I actually had an event that I needed to be at. And so we kind of designed our route on the river we started 100 miles upstream from the event that I needed to be at on a Monday. So it's also paddling on a Sunday. So by creating and designing my own, I could fit this adventure perfectly into my daily life, my other commitments, my children, my meetings, my work schedule. Was it a lot harder than just, spending a few days before and after recovering? Absolutely. Because, then there were birthday parties and end of school and all of that. And I just sort of, popped the the ultra paddle 100-mile kayak in the middle of all that. But we could create it to match exactly what we needed at the time. And that was the beauty of that adventure.
Were you able to talk about it when you got to your destination? Was it like a part of it, or was it
a little bit? I talked about it a little bit, but I hadn't quite processed it yet. I think I'd had a couple of hours of like a cat nap, so I was still kind of we're the car out front with the kayaks on it kind of thing.
We just paddled here from 100 miles upstream. That is,
yeah.
I love that. We hear that a lot on this show of folks fitting it in, and that can honestly be part of the fun too, is finding those pockets of time to do this, because it gives you encouragement to not say, okay, I either have to do it in my 20s before responsibilities or when the kids are out of the house, and hopefully I have enough money then and time, or when I retire even later. So this is really neat. So you try to do something for your birthday every year, it sounds like, and you try to fit a few things in.
Yes.
What is the rest of your life like? Normal career, normal responsibilities of being a mom and being a spouse and all that?
Yeah, it really is. But with the children, we really are trying to give them the outdoor experience, give them many adventures. We try to take them and involve them as much as we can. We went hiking on the Colorado Trail last summer. That was kind of our first big trip with kids. And we have talked about going back this year, but we haven't been able to commit because we went without a lot of sleep on that trip. But really, we're an outdoor family, and I grew up doing outdoor sports from a young age, and so it's just kind of a part of our nature. And I like to do anything I can with the kids. One of the fun things that I did for those 8 sports in 8 days, so I kind of borrowed some sports from adventure racing and triathlon. So obviously, I did swimming, biking, and running. But I kind of tried to do more exciting versions of those. So I did swim in my local pool, but then for my bike ride portion of that, I did a circumnavigation of my city. Now, there's not like a circular loop around my city. There are different paths and trails. And so I wanted to connect all of those and sort of explore the inner core. So that's a way of like urban exploring that I could do. And then I also got the kids involved. I did something called stroller blading. So rollerblades or inline skates, and then you pushed your jogging stroller. So I had 2 kiddos in the stroller, and I was rollerblading, and it's super fun if you can get over, looking kind of out there. And that's why I love some of the guests that you have had. The ultra blading and blade packing. I mean, I totally want to do that. I actually did a few rollerblading races when I was a young kid, and then it's part of adventure racing sometimes too. So I'm inspired by that, and also I got skate skis or Nordic skates as well. And so I've also been drawn to some of those stories that you've had. They're like cross country skis with rollers on the bottom. So in the summertime, in the shoulder season, you can go out, and it's such a good workout. It's like just mimics the cross country skiing movements and that kind of thing. And then I also, took the kids hiking. I had my son who was like, 10 months, like in a baby carrier, my daughter in the backpack, and did, a river trail hike and did scootering, kind of, distance scootering. All of these things were kind of pulled from adventure racing and triathlon and sport combinations and pack rafting. We like to do pack rafting as well, where you have a inflatable kayak-esque boat that you can run with on your back or bike with it on your back and then get to the water and inflate it. And so that has been super fun. And that's a really good tool. Like I can run down my bike trail in the middle of the city and air up my pack raft and keep paddling back stream. And if I have my bike, I can run back home. And it's like all done within 6 miles of my house. But it is kind of different and out there because I'm running with a boat on my back.
Unreal. That's so cool. I love that you are constantly trying new sports too, because, this is the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk about a lot of different things, and you're someone it seems like you're trying to try them all and to see what sticks and what you enjoy, what you don't. There was one that really caught my eye that I haven't really come across before, was swim packing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's kind of a new emergent version of swimming. I got for Christmas, my dad got my husband and I these ruck rafts. So they're basically like a buoy, an inflatable buoy that's like a raft, and then a dry bag. And you put the dry bag on top of the raft and strap it on, and then you hook that float around your waist, and you can swim with it. So think about having all of the gear that you would need to do hiking or camping, or even just a little picnic or a snack after your swim. So it's super cool. And in the UK, which is where these ruck rafts, where we got those from, they do a lot of like lake to lake, body to land, body of water crossing. Now, where I live, I don't have the natural landscapes, so it's more, we do kind of more of like swimming across a lake and then hiking and then swimming across the lake again, and we can talk about sort of the SwimRun component a little bit too. That is sort of a prequel to swim packing. So I got really, as a triathlete, I always, I liked biking, but it was never my best sport. And so in the 2015, I got really into SwimRun. And that is where you go from running to swimming all in one fluid movement. So you're not stopping at a transition, you're not changing clothes, you're swimming in your shoes, basically. And I competed in that and kind of got all the different gear and kind of used that to create local adventures in and around where I live, where I would run to a lake, swim across, run to a lake, swim across, and I connected bodies of water and, just kind of had minimal gear possible, doing this in the back roads of Kansas. And so swim packing is kind of like a slower version of swim run. So swim run might, be like fast packing or ultra running where you're going fast and long and light. And then swim packing is kind of like the backpacking or camping version. But these are ways that you can keep swimming and get out in the water and enjoy the natural environment and have your gear with you and try something new. And, if you wear a wetsuit, you can do it in kind of, do it a little bit longer. You don't have to just do it in the summer as far as, swim run or swim packing. But these are really fun swim combinations that allow you to swim in different ways, be a swimmer in more ways than just doing laps at the pool, in more ways than just open water swimming or being a triathlete. And even it expands it from just, I'm into marathon swimming, distance swimming. That is a hard sport. I honestly think it's harder than ultra running, because in ultra running, if you get tired, you can stop. In ultra swimming, you can't stop or you drowned.
Jeez.
And you don't have the outside stimulation, which is a nice gift sometimes. But in running, you can smell, you can look at the trees, you can look at the course, you can look at your phone, you can look at a map. When you're swimming, for marathon swimming, open water distances, you are in your own head, and you have to find a way to be at peace with that, and a way to keep going. And it really is a very individual sport because it really is just you and the water. So if you're looking for a way to sort of do some of those versions of swimming, swim run and swim packing are evolutions of that and new ways to keep being an athlete.
And it keeps it fresh for you, it seems like you enjoy innovative sports. How long do you typically stick with a sport or doing something before adjusting it or trying something new and moving on to something else? I don't know. I mean, do you have the time to pursue all these in the way you want to?
Well, like right now, I mean, I've done some mountaineering over the years. I'm not really doing any mountaineering right now. I mean, I have my gear and it comes in really handy when I'm doing an ice paddle. When I was training for the 100-mile ultra paddle, one weekend my river that I train on froze over. And so I kind of thought, I think that we could try this if we, looked up the sport of ice paddling and had the safety gear and, did it safely going with a partner. Um, and so that's a way to like, okay, I have all this mountaineering gear. I can be out in any weather. I might as well use it. I'll just use it for a new version of a sport. So it's really organic, Mason. Like, I didn't really intend to try ice paddling over the winter, but it happened. The conditions were right. And I went out and had my kayak gear and my safety stuff and threw on my mountaineering clothes and my heavy duty windbreaker and all that and gave it a try. Same thing with, the cross country swimming. Like, we heard about that. We got the stuff. We tried it out. We have plans to do more. Especially like once you invest in buying the stuff, like that's kind of, motivation to go out and do it. But yeah, it's really just, I've always liked trends in any area. It doesn't have to just be endurance sports. And so following what the leaders in the sport are doing or pushing yourself and not a lot of people are blade packing or ultra blading. But as an endurance athlete and someone who's done, several 100-mile races, that does appeal to me as well. And so I know people that have done 100-mile snowshoe events. So once the seed is planted, it's just really following that curiosity in whatever arena. I mean, there's the whole realm of snow sports as well, or road-based endurance sports, swimming and biking, bike packing, the Continental Divide, that kind of thing. There's always more. So once you find the area that you're interested in, kind of pursuing that until you need a break. Like I haven't paddled since the 100-mile paddle, but I am going to do some stand-up paddle boarding and some sup yoga this summer, and then in the fall I'll pick it back up again to train for my my pack rafting adventure. But I'm like, okay, I kind of did that. I can have a little bit of a break. I'll focus on some other areas, and by changing it up, I can be a lifelong athlete. I'm avoiding injury. I'm avoiding burnout. Once I get kind of done with one sport, I can hop over to the next one. So it's a really great way to be a progressive, lifelong outdoor athlete by just following your interest and trying new things and asking for specialized roller skis for Christmas.
Right. And a dad that gets you not a pack raft, but a swim.
Right. A swim
raft. Okay. You can pack your picnic in it, swim across the lake, and come back.
Right.
That is really interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit about the book, Go Far, How Endurance Sports Help You Win at Life. I know you've touched on a lot of this already just through the conversation about trying new things and avoiding burnout and whatnot, but you also, I mean, this is not what you do for a living. That you have a full-time career and you have responsibilities. What are you applying to your daily life from what you're learning?
Oh man, Mason, that's a good question. And my husband jokes that, being a mom and being a parent is really hard and demanding. And Go Far is a book that I wrote about endurance sports, but it has practical applications for business life, family life, parenting as well. And so we joke all the time that I've written this book about endurance, but I'm constantly having to pull things from it and rely on it. I'm just being a parent, and no sports included, right? Like just parenting, or even hard work challenges or that kind of thing. But part of the reason I wrote Go Far is that I am an endurance athlete in a lot of different sports. I kind of wrote a motto for myself when I was training for these things sort of simultaneously. And it was run long, for ultra running, climb high for climbing mountaineering and big summits of the world, swim deep to sort of speak to the distance, open water, marathon, ocean swim, crossing, and go far. And Go Far ended up being the name of my book because it kind of talked about all these different sports and iterations that I had tried. And it has really great stories about traveling and running across the geysers in Iceland and seeing a continent in miniature as I ran across the Canary Islands and traveling through the fern forest of New Zealand, all via foot and via running, and some of the swim stories. And swimming, escaping Alcatraz, and swimming in the Baltic Sea, and then some mountaineering stories as well. Learning how to be a glacial climber, and climbing in Russia, and going to areas and learning about the culture and the history. And so I had these really great experiences, but I wanted to share those, and I also wanted to give readers, well, what's in it for me? What can I take away instead of just, stories about something someone's done? And so Go Far really has three pillars that people can apply, just sort of about mindset and approach, and sort of how I approach life, and have parlayed these experiences and endurance into key takeaways for business and parenting. And so I was back at work at my marketing communications job after having my first child, my daughter. And I was really trying to identify, okay, who am I as a working mom, as a mother, as an endurance athlete? I didn't know that I would want to run again after having children. Like, there's, as a woman, there's this question of like, people always say, well, wait till you have kids. And so I felt like I couldn't really write this book until I had children, and knew that and my endurance sports background and experiences are even more important now because they allow me to connect with myself and be outside and be a better parent as I bring those experiences back. And so Go Far was really a reflection of being a working mom, being a mom, finding a place in sport, and then packaging that so that I could share it with my children and then with the world as well, as far as how these endurance sports and the mindsets behind them, and the theories and the tactics and the practices can be put into play no matter who you are, where you are in the world. Even if you're not into endurance sports, you can still find motivation from the stories and experiences, and take them back to your children and your families and your work life. I certainly need to, on a daily basis, tap into that endurance and tenacity required.
Yeah, you and me both. Jeez, I've got two little ones, 3 and 1, and oh man, it's such a tough time right now.
Well, that's my age. Those are my kids' ages as
Oh,
well.
really?
So yeah, they're close together, and it's demanding, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's just like 2 days ago. He's like, "I'm not going to sleep anymore." The 3-year-old, and it's like, where? What? What? You just decided you don't want to sleep in your bed at all, and get up 10 times a night, and it's like, it feels insurmountable. That's dramatic. That's dramatic, but you know what I'm saying.
It does. Yes, we had about 3 get-ups last night, and it's like, well, this has got to stop.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
we've got to figure this out. I don't know how we're going to, honestly.
Yeah, it's oh my gosh. But anyway, yeah, no, it's awesome to think that you still do these things, and you're still, writing books about this experience and whatnot, and tapping into the things you've learned on adventures to get you through this time of life. But what I would love to know, if you're able to, is there a story from the book that you can share that illustrates something you've learned, or a story that didn't quite make the cut to be in the book that kind of illustrates the flavor of the book, if that makes sense?
Well, yes, I thought what would be fun is that I know that you've had some swimmers on, but I thought it would be fun to tell the SwimRun story, and tell kind of how that originated.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Okay, cool. So I started telling it a little bit. But basically, I was in the middle of ultra run training and also marathon, open water, long distance swimming. And my dad, again, shared the story from Outside Magazine with me about a new emergent sport called SwimRun. And it's where you go from running to swimming to running to swimming, all in a fluid like movement with all your gear, all your clothes on, for ultra light distances. And kind of like a lot of things that we found over the years, there weren't any swim run events in the United States at the time. So we kind of were like, well, let's start trying it out and seeing how it is. I've done years of triathlons, and so I always loved the swimming and running, and especially combined. I'd even done some aquathons, which is swimming and running with a transition in between. And so the swim run like really appealed to me because it was a long way in each discipline. It was a lot of running and a lot of swimming. So it wasn't like a sprint triathlon. It was this distance endurance event as well, but it combined my two favorite things. And so what I did is I just sort of started training at my local lake where I swim, and sort of amassing the gear. So we talked about swimming in your shoes, like and it's some adventure racing that I had done. You're wearing your running shoes, and then all of a sudden you might have a body of water that you have to cross, and so you jump in and you're trying to swim. They usually make you wear like a giant orange PFD, and you have to swim in that, and your shoes are filling with water, and like it's just like sort of slow and ridiculous and comical because it's an adventure race swim. It's not a speed crossing the water as fast as possible sort of swim. So the first thing I did is I got specialized shoes that drain and are lightweight. I got them out of Sweden. And that was a big game changer because I could just run out of the water and sprint, and run for 3 or 6 miles and then get back in the water, and your heart rate's high, but you're looking forward to that relief and that refreshment that the water offers. So I really started training in my own backyard. And then I found a race in Stockholm, Sweden. And it was the perfect time, it was the perfect distance, and it felt doable. It felt like I could train for it and go do it. The only problem was that it was in the Baltic Sea. And the water was around 50 degrees, 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's really cold.
Yeah, that'll take the wind out of you.
Yes, so in addition to getting the physical training, I also had to train myself to get used to cold water. So that was a fun experience, to sort of overcome, because I had been invited to swim Alcatraz in San Francisco Bay, and I wasn't ready for it at the time. I didn't think I could handle the cold water. So through this swim run training, I learned how, and I adapted, and I got, I'd wear 3 different swim caps at a time, and I got a special swim run wetsuit. And I was then, after this, by doing this experience, I was then able the next year to go and do Alcatraz and be okay with the cold water because I had trained and learned and experienced that I could do it. And that's one of the stories that comes through in Go Far as well, is undergoing that you can, trying by giving something a chance. I've kind of referenced that a couple times with like the 100-mile paddle, and getting this cold water swim experience. Like, I didn't know if I could do it until I went out and tried something, and then I thought, I think I can do this. That's how I ran my first 100 miles too. I started with a 50K and a 50 miler and a 100K, and I had to have those experiences to know that I felt that I could do. Something inside me knew that I could at least try. So that's kind of an important section in the book, as well. So once I had, given SwimRun a little bit of a try, researched it, been inspired, gotten myself cold water trained, I also had to get all of the special gear. And there's quite a bit of gear involved because it's not regular swimming. It's not open water swimming. So first of all, you've got your water shoes, and then you've got a specialized wetsuit. that is actually it's a full body wetsuit, but you trim it, you cut it off so that you have the most mobility at your legs to be able to run, because you're running in your wetsuit because the water is so cold. And so that is its own sort of trick, because on the runs you kind of get warmed up and you get overheated. But my feet would still be like solid blocks of ice because I was in the Baltic Sea and it was absolutely freezing. So shoes, wetsuit, swim cap, goggles. You need to have your own food and hydration. So like I wore like an old Camelback and just threw some like gel packets in. It didn't have any extra pockets or anything because I was trying to keep things light and easy. And then in SwimRun, you can use paddles. And you can also use a pull buoy, because that helps elevate the legs from the weight of having the shoes on, is sort of the theory of why you can do that. Because in a normal adventure race or run or swim, you would not be allowed to use the training tools, but they're part of your gear in SwimRun. So imagine someone running through me in a suburban area while I was training, or in the race through the royal Swedish meadows that belong to the royal family. Running around in a wetsuit with a pull buoy strapped to your waist and paddles on your hands and a swim cap. Um, and I also had calf sleeves, just as sort of, an extra protection from the cold water. So the outfits are really quite something. But it was time to head off to Stockholm, Sweden. Once I had gotten that training and that gear, and then on the actual race, you wear like a bib number on you as well. So you've got all kinds of stuff. So we started with like a run, and you used to have a partner in SwimRun. It's now they have races in the United States, which is super cool, and they have some individual events. But an added element, if you're not already swimming and running with enough stuff, is you have to be connected to your partner with a small rope. And so my dad, luckily, wanted to do this with me. And so we were a mixed team. And so we started off running, and we're attached via tether. And we had done this in adventure racing before, so I knew that we could do it, but we hadn't swam tethered together. And you're always going to have someone that is maybe a better runner, a better swimmer, and so the better swimmer is having to sort of like wait for the other person. But the reason that they do that in SwimRun is for safety. But I was used to kind of that added challenge from adventure racing, and so you're with your partner, and we swam through about 9 different bodies of water on the Stockholm archipelago, between islands, through the royal parkland, through the sheep meadows, and the water would just be absolutely freezing. And sometimes we'd swim up to a mile at a time. Other times it would be just like a 50-meter sprint. Same thing with runs. Sometimes the runs would be anywhere from 1 mile or to 3 or longer at a time. So it was just this, training for it was really fun and rewarding. And then racing in another country. And one of the things that I try to talk about in Go Far is that I never want to just go somewhere and do an event. I always want to read literature from the country, try the local food. I actually had friends from school and church that were living in Stockholm at the time, and so we were able to do some stuff with them. And I absolutely loved like the cardamom. Swedish cinnamon roll buns. So I just had a great time trying the local flavors, but I always do. Um, and so that was, a lot of times places that I've been, like you're in the middle of nowhere in a tent in a desert, like you're not hanging out with your friends. Your mom's not there cheering you on. But this trip was a little different because it was in a city, in a metro area. So that was really fun, having come off, 5 or 6 years of, just kind of being out in Patagonia at the end of the earth, kind of alone, and making friends as you go, but not having that support system there. That was different and fun. And so we raced from island to island. That's kind of how the original name for SwimRun, one of the original races, is built around that name. But just beautiful gray rolling rocks, freezing cold, refreshing water. You're running fast, you're swimming fast, you're sprinting, but it's still a distance event. And so you're still having to kind of pace yourself. But it was just a great way to travel to a new country, travel to a new part of the world that I hadn't been before, learn a kind of a new culture, really, really dig in deeper than previous history, attempts, and then a race and compete. And then my favorite part is come home and take that knowledge of how to be a swimmer and how to be an endurance athlete in a new way and integrate that into my training at home and do that on a weekend and do that as a practical application at home. And so I've always loved the swim run combination. So on the weekend, 4th of July one year, we're just coming off of that, I can run to my lake, swim across, and run back home. And bam, that's a local swim run without, the racing element or the gear. You can do it any, lightweight, just a swimsuit and some shorts, if you want to try it. So that's kind of a story of swim run, the experience, something different, something out there. I really was pushing my boundaries because, like I said, at the time there were only races in Norway, Sweden, and I think Switzerland. There weren't any in the States. So I really had to travel to an entirely different country to try an entirely different sport. But then I've brought that back home. It's infused my life. It's informed my life. It's one of my favorite things to do. So the experience was more than just the race and the event. It was really, how can I mimic this and have this part of my daily life?
Is Wichita, Kansas now the new swim run hub of the U.S. because of you?
For Jennifer Strong McConachie, it sure is.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Very cool. Awesome story. And I love that this sport and this race caused you and your dad to have such an amazing experience together. Like I always say, adventure is sometimes we need that structure to go and make things happen and go and do things in other places where the stories you walk away from with this experience and the lessons you learn, you can't plan for those because you don't know what they're going to be. You just make sure you're there for that event. You're ready to do the adventure sports and all the memorable things fill in the gaps while you're there. For you, what would you say is next on the list, or what do you definitely have coming up as far as adventures, and what are maybe a few adventures that have always been out there that you would like to do?
Well, in the fall, we are planning, my husband and I think my dad is going to participate as well, and he's in town. We are planning basically we're calling it a 3-pack. So it's a pack rafting, bike packing, pack swimming combination. And so it's homegrown. It's at one of our local lakes. It's on my hometown river, but we're linking and connecting it all together in a totally new way. And I've swam at this lake, I've biked the backcountry roads, and I've paddled down this river, but I've never done it combined into this exact combination of sport. And this is actually kind of what my next sort of writing project is going to be about. So stay tuned for more. And also, you can follow me online. I will share the process as well too. But we're going to swim across our lake. I think the area that we've picked is about a mile, so doable. But we're going to have inflated kayak pack rafts towed behind us. So that is going to add an element to the swimming that is different, is this towing a pack raft, which is lightweight, and it's different from the cross-country swimming ruck raft. This is the boat that we're pulling. It's going to have my bike strapped, disassembled and strapped to the front, like in bike rafting. So swim across the lake, get to the other side, reassemble the bike, pack down the kayak pack raft into a backpack, put the backpack on, bike to our Kansas River, get to the river, inflate the boat, and hop on. And actually, I can paddle to right across from my house. I can paddle back home if I do a short portage section.
Jeez. Is that pretty equipment heavy? Is that like the hardest part of the planning for that, or?
It is. It's not the training. As long as you're keeping like in general run bike paddle shape. The training itself, it's there, it's doable, but the gear and the logistics of that little adventure, those are what the time is going to entail. Assembling and deassembling the bike. Once you've done it, you can get it down pretty fast. It's just like anything, practice and repetition and feeling confident in your gear. So that's a short-term goal, and it's honestly, it's just fun. It's just something fun to go try something different, a different combination. But the big goal that I have set for myself is I have wanted to do a 10K swim for a really long time, and I've been training for other events and other things. But I think that that is going to be my focus next year is doing a 10K swim and possibly a 10-mile river swim as well, because I'm a river person. Got the paddle on the river, got the surf on a stand-up paddleboard, surfing the river. Now I need to go swim a river.
Of course, you got to go swim a river. You can't. Yeah, of course.
Of course.
That's just a logical next step. And let me ask this before we go. Do you work in an office or do you go somewhere? And what do folks think about you? And if not, maybe family and friends, what do they think about this? They might be used to it at this point, and the folks at work too, but what are some of the reactions you get around you?
Well, people think that I'm normal because I look and I seem like really normal. And then I start talking about this stuff and they realize that you've got a crazy side.
Yeah, keep your distance.
But I think that's how a lot of your guests are, and a lot of us in the endurance adventure community. I'm just a normal person. I'm not obsessed with it. It's one part of my life. I try to make it more meaningful by studying history, studying books, studying maps, getting friends and family involved. So it's not just about, oh, I went out and worked so hard and conquered this. It's not about that. It's just about pushing myself and having fun while doing so. So I think, especially once the book came out, a lot of my friends, they knew that I had done a lot of this stuff, but they didn't know the extent. And so that's what's also been nice is the book has given more background and more details to sort of people that have seen me do all of this, but then, it's bam, back to work. And you just kind of move on. And so the book has been a really great way to share my story more broadly and just share the experiences because they're fun and we can all learn from them and continue to have our own, whether that's just walking to the local park or biking there instead of driving next time or, swimming a river.
And I'm sure it's helped you realize what you've learned because it's like you've internalized what you've learned, but you've never maybe put it on paper until this experience. Maybe you have. I don't know. Personally, I haven't. But this would help me understand it.
Yeah, that was the great thing about the process of writing the book is that it was a rewarding process. And I've really loved having that platform and being able to connect with more people around the world online and in new ways than I had before. As I was always part of the community, but I wasn't necessarily promoting it or participating. I was just kind of doing it for me because I found it rewarding. So it's been fun and I'm just so inspired. I listen to other guests and man, so many ideas and things to do. And so it's so great to share other people's stories and share in this community and inspire each other. And that's what I love about adventure sports and the podcast.
Oh, well, Jennifer, this has been another one for the books of, quote, normal person, from the outside looking in, doing some extraordinary things, hugely inspiring. And I'm excited to check out the book, Go Far, How Endurance Sports Helps You Win at Life. Amazon, is that the best place for folks to find it?
Yep, it's on Amazon, also Barnes & Noble, Penguin Random House, and you can get it from your local independent bookseller as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And keep getting out there and doing whatever you want, combining sports all willy-nilly however you want to. You've done it all. Really cool stuff.
Thank you so much, Mason. It's been really fun chatting with you.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
This week on RVER, sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
That new doctor is drop dead gorgeous.
Please, he's just another RV League educated surgeon with good hair.
No, he's different.
Nurses, we got a Class C motorhome with a detached driver's side mirror. Meet me in the OR. Stat.
Right away, doctor.
No, she's on break. I'll handle this one.
Oh, you conniving little...
When your RV really needs saving, Progressive has you covered. See if you could save with a leader in RV insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, covered subject to policy terms.